Hi, this is Bill Kenower for Author Magazine, and this month I talked to David Laskin. David's he's a best-selling nonfiction author, written 10 or 11 books, but now he has just released his first novel, the literary young adult novel, What Sammy Knew. We had a great conversation about the journey to write this book. It was quite the journey for David. He really took him down into the dark night of the soul, but he came out with a book. Yes, he did. And we talked about that, about the imagination, humility, and the power of inviting people into a story you told. Enjoy. I thought about this interview. I'm so glad we're doing it, David. It's kind of a full circle moment for you and me, because I met you at the Chuckanut Writers Conference.
That's right.
And the day I met you, we had dinner, and you were in a low place. You were like, I don't even know if I want to do this thing anymore. Do you remember that conversation?
I remember it really well.
Yeah, you were like, I've had it. You were talking about the inner critic, and just like, and you had at this point had a best-selling book. You had published, how many books had you published at that point? The Family had just come out.
Yeah, so that was probably 10 or 11. I know.
I didn't even know there were that many. Okay, so you published, you'd written for major New York or American newspapers, right?
That's correct. That's right.
Yeah. New York Times, Washington Post, whatever. Okay.
That's right. Right.
But you were at a low point and you weren't sure. And what was interesting is you were at that moment, at that conference, you had begun talking to me about the possibility of writing a memoir about your teenage years. Which would have been, that itself would have been a dramatic departure, because in The Family, you finally used the word I, which I believe was the first time in your books you had used that word. Is that true?
That is true. Yeah.
Wow.
Good catch, Bill. Yeah. Yeah. So, let me fill you in on what happened since then. And you're absolutely right. You have a fantastic memory. After The Family, it was really hard for me to engage with another subject. The main problem was I couldn't get curious about anything. Nothing grabbed me.
I'm going to interrupt you a little bit, because that was so interesting. That was what we were talking about.
Exactly.
And I have used that conversation in my teaching to say, we were talking about curiosity. Okay. So you couldn't get curious about anything.
And you can't, as I said in the other interview we did, you can't make yourself be curious. It's like you can't make yourself like the Mariners. You can't make yourself like roses, roses, whatever. Right. Nothing made me curious. So I was depressed. I was really down. Yeah. But I started, I kept writing, journaling, talking to myself. And gradually I became curious. And what I became curious about was the life of an African-American woman named Ethel Foreman, who lived with my family. She was our nanny. We didn't call her nanny back then, but that's right. What we would call her now. Live-in domestic servant, let's say. I was born on her birthday. She was already working for us when I was born, and she worked for us for the first 10 years of my life. And that was her. So she died in 1963. So we're talking 64. Wow. So we're talking a long, long time ago. But I started that curiosity, that little light bulb of, what? Went off, and I started to research her. So I had this amazing material. Curiosity was up and running again, and I was thrilled to be working in this. And so I wrote a book, a memoir that was basically about the intersection of my, kind of late in career grasping for another subject with finding, kind of rediscovering this person from my past, and who I think really embodies African-American history. But so that was good.
So you wrote it. You wrote a whole book.
I wrote a whole book.
I know how this goes.
Yeah, and then it never got published. And the publisher was like, it's such a cool idea, but you don't know enough about Ethel. You don't have letters. You don't have diaries. There were no descendants. You went to her church, but you channeled her spirit, but you didn't really bring her fully to life on the page. And I thought it was really, really a blow.
Yeah. And because if I recall, you had not experienced rejection like flat out, like you had never, if you wrote a book, it got published.
No, I was flattened. But I also decided I am not done with this story. This is too good of a story. So anyway, long story short, or long story medium, I decided, you know what? I'm going to make it up. I'm going to write it as a novel.
Man.
And
now tell me, because I remember when you told me that, and I'm going to be honest with you, Dave. My mind was like, uh-oh.
I know.
He's going down some rabbit hole. I mean, I prayed for it. I was like, please, because you are a writer. This is what you do, but I know what it's like, and I did not know how that was going to go because it was such a departure.
It was. Those prayers. I think it's your prayers,
Bill. Yeah, probably.
That took me over. My agent had the same reaction, and she said, most people who try to do that fall flat on their faces. I have to say, when I first sat down, I thought, okay, chapter 1.
Here we go. Yep.
Here we go. It came out exactly like my nonfiction books. And I thought, no,
all right.
You got to put a different hat on, different muscles. I think I started by saying Sam Stein, was an inveterate eavesdropper. And then I thought, that's crappy. Make him eavesdrop on something.
And have him eavesdropping.
Have him, yeah. And so then there was a phone call that Tutu was making, and Sam picks up the other end of the line and discovers stuff about her life. All of that ended up going in the garbage. But it kind of clicked me into that novelistic frame of mind. And so, but Bill, I have to say that skepticism, I saw it in your eyes. You tried to disguise it, but I thought, Bill's like,
I was afraid for you, my friend.
I felt it too. And nobody read a word of this until I was finished. And I sat down, I printed it out, I read through it, and I thought, not bad.
Yeah.
And then I showed it to my agent, and she said, yay, you jumped the fence. And there were more drafts, much more work, but so I'm still pinching myself. It was not a turn I saw coming. I was thrilled. And now, I had my launch on Tuesday night, and I felt like, wow, my imagination is inhabiting the minds of all of these people.
Yeah. It was Andre Dubus who was like, don't have something to say, have something to learn when you go to write. And he had something to say. He had something to say.
Yeah, I know. I like his work, yeah.
But he had to remind himself, have something you're going to learn. And I think the fiction writer, even though we look to them to have something to say, I think the work of art, it's out there, and then it just does what it does in the heart of the reader. And it's really out of your hands.
This is something that continues to surprise me. You write a book, it's you. You're living and breathing it.
Oh yeah.
It's published, and it no longer belongs to you.
No.
Yeah, I wrote about this in the memoir. I said it's kind of like a house that it's your job. You go there every day. You're putting up the drywall, and then it's done, and somebody else moves in.
That's right.
You try to visit, you see all the cracks and the shoddy workmanship, but you can't live there anymore. And I mourn when I finish a book. Most people are like, isn't it exciting to finish a book? No. I feel like especially this book, I love these kids. I loved hanging out. By the end, I felt like I was part of their gang.
Nice.
And I was kind of eavesdropping on their conversations.
David, I'm so happy for you.
Oh, this is
Can I
great.
say, I'm not quite done with you. This is interesting because I asked you this question when I interviewed you. Yeah. And I know the answer's changed now. I can just feel it. So here's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
I want you to finish this sentence. If writing, all the writing you've done, not just Sammy, all the writing you've done has taught you anything, it's taught you what?
Wow. I would say humility, but also a sense of power. It's kind of a weird, maybe it's almost contradictory. Humility in that it's so damn hard and it doesn't get easier, but power in that, you know what? If you silence those voices and get in the flow, you can do way more, and you can cast that spell. You can enter into somebody's mind. It almost sounds like science fiction. I want to be in your mind, controlling your thoughts. It's only for a few hours while you read the book. Don't worry, there won't be any ill after effects. But yeah, that power, I can do that. I can get, and I think in fiction, part of what gave me the courage to write fiction is that people, when reading my nonfiction books, would say, you draw characters so well. The character of Sonia, for example, in The Family, who is one of the Zionist pioneers, or Doba, her sister, or in the Children's Blizzard, this character, this little boy who jumps off the hay wagon and almost freezes in the storm. People are like, I really feel that these are, I'm with them. And I thought, if I could do that in nonfiction, I could do that in fiction. So it's that sense of making people care more about the book, the characters, than their own lives at that moment. That's a lot of power, and that feels good.